Okay, let's go. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tout le monde. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for this event, which enable rich discussions about the Falah project, and especially Dr. Gali for being here to talk to you about non-urban contribution, strengthening the legal resilience of indigenous knowledge in the Pacific, a comparative study of Caledonian and Vanuatu students. I would also like to thank you in advance for your kindness. This is the first time I'm given a presentation in English, and this is the last. Well, big pressure, but it's funny with a colleague say. I'm Vaimui Albanese. I have a lot of remark of the same of the Australian Prime Minister. Yes, it's the same, but thank you. I'm a PhD student in law at the University of New Caledonia, and as part of my thesis project, I was able to join SPAR Pacific Research Project. We recall some elements that Dr. Gali has already presented. The Indigenous Knowledge and Practices Project, SPAR Pacific, is an interdisciplinary research initiative that focuses on the indigenous knowledge and practices of Pacific Island population in the context of high resilience to the challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has had a significant impact on lifestyle. To support these things, a field survey was conducted among students in 5 universities in the region, New Caledonian, Vanuatu, Fiji, Solomon Island, and Papua New Guinea. On average, the sample represent between 3 and 10% of the student enrollment aged 18 and 30. The first survey took place after the opening of the border between 2022 and 2024, but it's not the same because it's the first version. I have another, but this is the last. Okay. However, my analysis to present today is focuses only on the response given by the Caledonian and Vanuatu students because it's the first results of the field survey. Before giving you some figures, I will clarify what we mean when we talk about indigenous knowledge and practices. A body of knowledge shared by the human group, which is transmitted and transformed in the relation to the ecology of this group. There are both a way of seeing the world and a way of living it. There is the languages, art, craft, and maybe the most is the gastronomy. And this is why one question of asked to the student when whether they were the custodian or guardian of indigenous knowledge. And this is important, you see here, is 79% of Caledonian students and 89% of Vanuatu students answering yes. This is significant, especially because these young people are more vulnerable to the dynamic of modernization and globalization. With the risk of losing these indigenous knowledge and practices, which are the foundation of their identity and culture. To preserve these depositories is essential to equip students with legal tools to help them cope with the shocks such as COVID-19 and more generally the effect of climate change, which particularly affect the Pacific Islander. Hence, the notion of resilience, although according, is usually perceived from a sociological or anthropological perspective, but is legitimate to integrate into the legal sphere. What we mean by legal resilience? This is important given to the effect of disruptions like COVID-19 on the dysfunctionment of systems. This raising the question of the place of resilience in law and the legal mechanics to guarantee the sustainability of indigenous knowledge and practices, the right to a role, and this is a case, maybe, to play is why questions were posed to the student along this line. This is the first question that is concerned the student perception of the usefulness of the law to in protecting indigenous knowledge and practices. Of the student who declare themselves to be custodian, you see here in the University of New Caledonia, 42.8%, and in University of Vanuatu, 65.7% say yes to the law is useful. One reason to explain this result is a political organization, and more specifically the coexistence of several legal rights in these territories, such is the place of the custom. For example, in Vanuatu, customary law, and I think is the same in New Caledonia, is recognizing by the Constitution of Vanuatu, which apply if there is not written with a mix of common law and French law, while customary law in New Caledonia only apply to a portion of the population, the Kanak. This is why, for example, in Vanuatu, adopted a traditional knowledge and expression of culture act, which protect indigenous knowledge. It was drafted after consulting customary councils, and the implementation of this text was introduced to the traditional shift. This is not the case in New Caledonia. Although the customary Senate serves as the voice of customary law within the New Caledonia institutions, this is role remains purely consultative and is limited to the specific area when law were adopted by the Congress of New Caledonia. Other side, in New Caledonia, you are the French Parliament are extended the law to the territory. This explains partially the difference in the perception regarding the usefulness of the law. The second question, the consideration of indigenous knowledge and practices in the law-making progress. 59% 98.6% of Caledonian students agree or partially agree, while in Vanuatu, you are 77.9%. And one reason that may explain the difference between the two territories is the composition of their populations. In New Caledonia, multi-community living there, each with their own indigenous knowledge and practices such Wallisians or Tahitians. Mainly, the Kanak is the indigenous people make up the majority of the Caledonian population. They're actively working to promote their identity. As a result, incorporated all these indigenous knowledge system and practices into the legislation in New Caledonia is more complex than in Vanuatu, where the population is not diverse, predominantly Melanesian. A light of this observation is clear that students' relationship with the law vary depending on the political context and the society in which they live. However, there are a way of important passing down indigenous knowledge and practices to future generations. Thus, in the survey, students were invited to share their view of this topic. And the responses are highly relevant because they provide insight into legal resilience strategy. And for the conclusion, I would like to share with you some suggestions made by the student. For example, into the education, the student proposed that the law should impose the mandatory teaching of vernacular languages and the dissemination of indigenous practice in school, such as braiding or dance workshops. They propose that the knowledge integrate in the school curricula such sport with a noted option, and maybe to generalize law to awareness of usefulness. And for the custom, the student proposed to promote the work of cultural volunteer to inside the association. And another is proposed that the customary law must be written down, but it's complicated because it's an oral tradition. And for me, the most important is the modern law should give a greater importance to the customary law and consideration of the culture in law. But this is much to say in the subject, but given the time limit, I will stop here. I just take an advantage of this moment to ask to your collaboration in the written of an article about the problematic question. Thank you for your attention. Merci.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Thomas. Well, shorted, but just one short question. Wow. Allez, Mathilde, but very, very short. Huh? Because after we have the ceremony, the closing ceremony. So.
Okay. Comme tu veux. Est-ce que vous allez faire une restitution auprès des étudiants et une analyse comparative que vous allez restituer auprès des étudiants? Parce que je pense que c'est hyper intéressant pour l'intégration régionale, justement, et pour montrer les liens entre les différents pays du Pacifique. Just I'm going to translate very quickly. Are you going to do a restitution to the student that participate to the survey and a comparative analysis with all the response of this survey so that it can promote regional integration?
I think is yes. I just asked to the chief project, Olivier. Yes, I think because we are the protocol to publish. Maybe we'll publish the last month, and this is important to. Yes, but because we are just analyze New Caledonia and Vanuatu, but we have Fiji to analyze and Solomon Island. So the specifically or local, this is important. Thank you so much, Mathieu.
Merci.
Thank you.
Oh, allez, last one pour Pierre. Pierre, on te refuse rien.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to just give some information about education and the customary law in the context of Vanuatu. So regarding the importance to introduce vernacular language and cultural practices in the curriculum, I would like to inform everyone, and especially you undertaking this research, it is already done in the review of the curriculum since 2010. And for the customary law, we have this influence of the Westminster system that not really allow the implementation of the customary law, but it's in progress actually with the Vanuatu Malfatu Maori Council of Chiefs. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Yes, is in New Caledonia it's the same for vernacular languages to learn in school, but it's complicated in New Caledonia because you are different languages for the different regions. Donc, yes, but is in this school, his practice is the same. Yes, maybe if I ask to Solomon Island and Fiji is the same after.